You know, one of the things that started my journey in wanting to talk about movies online was honestly diving into older films that were from far beyond my time that always just intrigued me. And I started to fall in love with more film criticism that was about those films. So today I'm happy to be talking about one of those films, The Invisible Man. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about one of the classic Universal horror monster films from 1933, and that movie is called The Invisible Man. Directed by James Whale, who also directed Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein. This is written based on the novel by H.G. Wells and stars people like Claude Rains, Gloria Stuart, William Harrigan, Henry Travers, Una O'Connor, and many more. And before we get too far into this review, I'd like to say a big thanks to the guest that I have in this video, and that is my buddy Tajaya of Blacktastic Media. We're going to be hearing his thoughts in just a moment, but I'm very happy to have him on once again for another original horror monster review, as we actually covered a couple of movies at this point from the Universal horror monsters, most notably things like The Mummy, the original with Boris Karloff. So it's a lot of fun to have him here on the channel once again. We're going to be hearing from him in just a moment, but you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box, so go ahead and give him some love and let him know I sent you. But for now, let's get into just the base premise of The Invisible Man. When I was a kid, The Invisible Man was never really my favorite, as I was far more into the actual monsters, and The Invisible Man is more of a misunderstood man who messed with the wrong chemicals. If you're unfamiliar with what this movie is all about, right out of the gate, we're introduced to Dr. Jack Griffin, a man who is a scientist who actually used the wrong cocktail that he should not have used. He used the wrong chemicals that ended up making him invisible. But what he doesn't know is not only did it make him invisible, but it was also something that was going to alter his emotions and alter his attitude, making him a far more angry version of who he was before. And slowly throughout the course of the film becomes more and more maniacal, wanting to strangle people and throw them off cliffs, and even derails a train at a certain point in this film. This man goes from your everyday scientist to a lunatic by the time he is fully invisible. And that's the base premise of The Invisible Man. Throughout the course of the movie, he's trying to find some sort of scientific way to make himself whole once again, except throughout the course of the film, he starts to do these very maniacal, crazy things, these very villainous things that start to grab the attention of the local police, and a manhunt is started for him. And throughout all of this, because he's starting to lose his mind a little bit, he just chooses to kill people throughout the course of the film, leading to his death inevitably at the end of the film after the manhunt is over, but many people have been killed in his way. And like most of these old classic films from Universal, there's always a love interest in there that tends to feel undercooked, but was of course something very much of its time. But what makes The Invisible Man something that really stands out are its special effects, because in 1933, there was no CGI, green screen did not exist in the way that we know it today, and for them to have pulled off the invisible sequences of this film is honestly quite astonishing.
I'll show you who I am and what I am. Look, he's all eaten away. How do you like that, eh?
There was nothing like this at this point in film. And when you go back and even watch the film today, I watched my Blu-ray copy of the movie, it is still wildly impressive that they were able to pull this off. Now, there are moments where his clothes are starting to fade in certain places. There are moments where you can clearly see the limitations of the effect that they were trying to achieve here. But quite frankly, I was really blown away going back and revisiting it at how good a lot of these sequences looked in terms of the special effects of him being invisible. This was a time where nothing like that had ever been done. This was a time where something like that wasn't even feasible. Yeah, you know, going back and revisiting this movie, if I can be completely and utterly honest, while I don't think it necessarily holds up the best narratively, I found myself still really thoroughly enjoying the watch. I enjoyed the big, over-the-top dramatic acting that is very prevalent in this era of cinema, and I just had a lot of fun going back and just seeing how far cinema has come. The Invisible Man is a movie that would spawn multiple sequels, including various other individuals who would become invisible, including one that came out just a couple of years ago that was a big hit with critics and fans. And so without a doubt, The Invisible Man's legacy has continued on. I just had a blast going back and rewatching this film. Now, I do have some other things I want to talk about in specifics and some stuff that maybe didn't really work about this film for me going back and revisiting it. But I'm going to go ahead and throw it off to my buddy Blacktastic Media so he can give us his thoughts, talk a little bit about the movie, and then we'll get back to my thoughts in just a moment.
Yo, what's up? Kicking it with my man, Anthony A. Perez. Getting close to Halloween, you know, it's that time of year. And it's time to get into some either ghost stories, demonistic movies, monsters, or the original monsters. The Frankensteins, the werewolf, creature from the Black Lagoon, or my all-time favorite, besides the Wolfman, is the Invisible Man. Loved this character since a kid. And I remember being little, and my brother's babysitting me, we watching TV on Saturdays. It seemed like the Invisible Man was always on. Now, I don't know if it was the original, because this movie spawned so many sequels. The Return of the Invisible Man, The Revenge of the Invisible Man. So I could have been watching one of those sequels as a kid, not knowing that it wasn't the original. The original, H.G. Wells, novel brought to life by Universal Pictures, The Invisible Man in 1933. This movie is a gem, let me tell you. Movies open up, this man's walking through a snowstorm. He walks into a tavern and asks for a room. This man's covered up in bandages, look like a burn victim. People are looking at him like, that's peculiar. They're playing the piano, they're dancing and singing and laughing, having a jolly old time till this fool walks in. They're like, peculiar. Well, he checks into his room and you later find out that he removes the bottom half of his mouth and he's invisible. And he's setting up the room where it's like a science lab. You go, okay, mad scientist, failed scientist, what's going on here? Then it cuts to, he has a fiance, a beautiful blonde fiance, talking to her father. Where is he? I haven't seen Jack for a while. He just disappeared. This is not like him. He shares all his secrets and scientific stuff with me. Well, Jack Griffin fucked up. This man took a potion that turned him invisible. So he's hiding out so he can fix it. But the cool thing about this situation, some detectives was looking for him and going through his stuff, and his friends, the scientist people, was going through his stuff as well. Find out that, he was using this. Well, this potion is dangerous. They tried it on animals and different things that turned their fur white, and it drove them mad. So I'm like, because Jack Griffin is a trip. He's yelling, he's screaming, and he wants to dominate the world. He wants people to grovel at his feet. That's all he talks of throughout the whole film. I'm like, is this a Marvel character? Is this a antagonist from, one of them superhero movies? It sounds like it. But it's a great premise. And like I said, it's a great monster movie, one of the originals from Universal. And when this movie came out in 1933, it was a box office hit. It made plenty of money. It's only 72 minutes. It goes by fast. And Jack Griffin is crazy. And he's a killer. He kills people. He kills people with two methods. Either by choking them or throwing people off cliffs. This dude is a cliff throwing, choking type dude, man. I was cracking up. And he'll tell you, I'm going to kill you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And he keeps his word, man. He killed his partner the next day at 10 o'clock when he betrayed him. Called the cops on him. He's reunited eventually with his fiance and he's talking to her. I'm thinking, finally a tender moment. he's going to realize the error of his ways and try to find the right potion to get back with his fiance. As she's talking, this motherfucker's like, I want people to grovel at my feet. I want them to bow down. I'm like, that potion really jacked his head up. Goes on a killing spree. There's a watch party looking for him. He's throwing people off cliffs. This dude crashes a train. Thinking, how did he do that? No, he didn't jump on the train. He got where the controls are, the little lever, and pulled it and switched the tracks. And a train carrying 100 people goes off a cliff. I'm like, damn, this dude is jacked up. And one guy, his ex-partner, he got him double. He choked his ass in the car, then drove his ass off the cliff. Told you, he's a cliff-slanging motherfucker, boy. But this movie's entertaining. It's the old classic black and white movies. The acting is overdone, overcooked, but early Hollywood was like that. There's this one lady that plays the wife of the other owner of the tavern that's in this film. Her acting will have you cracking up. She loves looking to the camera. She has these big bug eyes, and she's very acrobatic with her movements. She uses her body as physical comedy. And it's not supposed to be funny, but the Invisible Man threw her ass down the stairs. I'm like, damn, it didn't look like a body double. Like, she did that shit. But it's overacting, over dramatic, but it's fun. Jack Griffin's one of my favorite characters, AKA the Invisible Man, because he is gravitas. He hems the camera. He loves it. And let's talk about the special effects. This was groundbreaking in 1933. It was like, how did they do this? It's amazing. Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, but man, something about the Invisible Man. It's a cool character. And you can see how this was easily a hit because it's so different and so cool. There's no blood or anything like that, but plenty of madness and plenty of people getting thrown off cliffs. My type of joint. But yeah, man, wishing you a happy Halloween. It's that time of year. I'm kicking it with my man, Anthony A. Perez. You know, if you are a film buff, take some time and check out these old films from the 1930s and 40s. This was Hollywood to me at its best. Some great, great filmmaking. Some of the acting is over dramatic. Women were not treated well back in those days in film, but that's just era of its time. And you don't see no black people in these movies because, you know, we were slaves. So, hey, it happens. That's Hollywood for you. But The Invisible Man, 1933, give it a watch. It's cool during Halloween. With that, I say thanks for watching. I'm going to hand it back over to my man Perez. Yo, take us out, brother.
A big thanks to Blacktastic for joining me here once again. And as usual, guys, you can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Let him know I sent you and go ahead and give him some love. And I think now I must consistently watch this movie knowing that Jack Griffin is a cliff-slinging motherfucker. I love that line. That was the greatest thing that I think Blacktastic Media has maybe ever said. Again, a big thanks to him for joining me here in this video, and you guys can find the link to his stuff down below. Go give him some love. So let's go ahead and wrap up my thoughts on The Invisible Man. As I mentioned before, the special effects for its time, similar to what Blacktastic said, are top-notch. There's without a doubt just a complete standout in this film, and it is the ability for them to turn this man invisible in a film that came out in 1933. I think what this movie lacks today, watching it literally 90 years later, is when it comes down to its narrative. It's a pretty base, very simplistic narrative that was very common for the time. I don't think that modern day audiences will go back and watch 1933's The Invisible Man and necessarily be riveted by the narrative, but that's not to say that there aren't things to still walk away from this film with in terms of positives. I think for me, again, beyond the special effects, what really stands out here too is some of the ingenuity in making some of these sequences work. Because not only do you have to make the special effect work, you have to try to make it work within a sequence that takes place back in 1933, which was no easy feat. Like Blacktastic mentioned, one of my favorite things about this film that you kind of just have to take at face value for its time are the performances. There is an over dramatic nature to acting at this time that oftentimes can come off quite funny. And that's part of the charm of these films for me at this point. It's not necessarily going back and being like, well, that film was absolutely exquisite from 1933. It's more so going back and being able to laugh at some of the ridiculous dialogue that is maybe very much of its time, whether it be something that's maybe a little bit sexist or a little bit questionable because it was just so much of its time that you just kind of have to laugh at how far we've come in society, or just even some things about the film that are just downright hilarious in line delivery. He mentioned earlier before that there's a woman who's married to the tavern owner, and she is hysterical. That character's name is Jenny Hall, and she's played by Una O'Connor, and she is hysterical throughout the course of the film, giving us some of the most bombastic and overacted sequences throughout the course of the film that ultimately just add to the charm of this era of cinema.
He's here! The Invisible Man!
Something else that I also found hysterical while watching the film were all of the policemen, most notably the constable that comes to originally discover what's going on with the Invisible Man. His performance was absolutely hysterical. His line delivery was hysterical. And I think it's something that is only specific to this era of cinema that can allow it to be entertaining and forgivable all these years later.
Invisible, that's what's the matter with him. If he gets the rest of them clothes off, we'll never catch him in 1,000 years. Come on. Put the handcuffs on. How can I handcuff a blooming shirt?
Nowadays, as film goers, we expect a certain level of realism when it comes to our performances, unless it's something that is supposed to be a satire, a parody, or something that of course is very self-aware and meant to be kind of offbeat and weird. More often than not, we expect realism when it comes to our performances in modern day cinema. And at that time, that's what was expected. You know, we wanted people that were acting and wanted to feel like a performance. It almost was like bringing stagecraft onto screen, whereas film acting is so different to stage acting in the modern day. While there are similarities, there is an over dramatization that is brought to stage acting, even in the modern day, that you don't bring to film acting today. And so when you go back and watch films of this era, you kind of have to watch it knowing that a lot of these actors are acting in almost a stage performance kind of way. There is just over dramatics left and right. There is over exaggeration in body movements as well as facial expressions. And that was some of the funniest stuff that I saw throughout the course of this film. I also think that because they don't know where film's gonna go and the world is so simplistic back in those days, some of the funniest elements about watching this film are seeing how they're gonna try to tackle capturing the Invisible Man. Whether it be them all holding hands around a house to try to seal him in, or walking across a room with a big net to hopefully capture him, some of the ways that they try to capture the Invisible Man in this film are absolutely hysterical. I think where this film could have maybe been a little bit stronger was showing us actually him becoming the Invisible Man. When we are introduced to Jack Griffin at the beginning of the film, he is already wrapped in bandages and is already invisible, and he's already kind of creating a plan to try to heal himself. So we don't get to see any of that happen, which is where I feel like the storyline around the romance is lacking a little bit. He has a romance with this woman named Flora, but they set that up kind of as the movie's going on. He's turned invisible, he's gone missing, Flora doesn't know why, and once they end up coming back together, she's trying to talk him off the ledge of being crazy, but of course we know now at this point that the chemical that made him invisible is slowly making him mad. Even if he still loves Flora and just wants to live a normal life with her, he kind of wants to rule and conquer over everybody else outside of Flora. And I almost wish that they would have started the movie with us seeing Jack Griffin and Flora together, seeing him actually become invisible and choosing to run off, and kind of allowing us to feel for Flora that she can no longer find this man she loves. Whereas in the case of this film, Jack Griffin is instantly invisible at the start of the film. He's already become invisible, and we're just getting to scenes where Flora is like, well, where's Jack gone? And that oftentimes kind of just left the romance element of this film just feeling overly cliche, even for films of this age. But with all that said, I think The Invisible Man is a lot of fun to watch. I think if you're a fan of cinema in general, this is definitely a classic horror film that you should check out. Is it something that you're going to be necessarily riveted by when it comes down to the dialogue and the performances? Maybe not, but there's absolutely entertainment value here and absolutely some impressive feats that were accomplished in this film when it comes down to special effects. And I really want to give a lot of love to Claude, who really brings a lot of drama and excitement to the performance of Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man. There are times in this film where he's really hamming it up in his vocals, and it's very much of its time, but it still really holds up. And without a doubt, he was an entertaining figure throughout the course of the film.
You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? All right, I'll show you.
So that's going to be my thoughts on The Invisible Man. A big thanks once again to my buddy Blacktastic for joining me here once again. You guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box, so go give him some love and let him know I sent you. The question is now, have you seen The Invisible Man 1933? Are you interested in it? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below. And what I will say is, if it's a film you've never checked out before, I do think this is something that every big film fan should watch. Again, you have to take into account what was available in terms of technology to make this film in 1933. And without a doubt, what they were able to pull off in that time is impressive then and impressive now. So a big thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.